Welcome everyone. This is part 4, lesson 4, our polity lecture. So, in this lecture, we are going to discuss about the types of constitutions. We already have discussed what is constitution. Okay. So, so types of constitutions also works or like is categorized on the various characteristics. Okay. So we are going to discuss about all those characteristics in this lecture. We are the types of constitution with various types of characteristics, and all are important. Okay. So okay, so on the basis of first characteristics, we have one constitution which is called as a written constitution, and another is called as the unwritten constitution. Okay. Now the question arises, what do we understand by a written constitution, and what do we understand by unwritten constitution? Unwritten means like all the all the laws, all the related rules are not coded within a same book. Like there are some provisions, there may be some provisions uh, that are working on the basis of assumption. Okay. So what do you understand by written constitution? Written constitution is like, it means like it should be a one single document. Okay. One single document, like all the laws should be codified under this document. So which are the countries who have a written constitution? So such as will be US and India. Okay. Now which are the constitution which we called as the unwritten constitution? So that unwritten constitution will be called as the example for this will be your UK and New Zealand. Similarly, we will you can search more about which are the countries. So the important part focus about that the types of constitution based on one characteristics, one particular characteristics will be written constitution and unwritten constitution. So unwritten constitution, it doesn't mean like it is not written anywhere. Okay, laws are written, but not all laws are written. But in the written constitution, laws are written and all laws are written in a single document. Okay. So unwritten constitution, it doesn't mean that laws are not written. Laws are written. Okay. But not all laws are written. Okay. So here, so how the governance will take place? Let us suppose any case came to the court. So how the jury will take a decision on that? So jury will take decision on some of the conventions plays a role. So laws which are written is okay, but for the laws which are not written, it will be considered a convention that plays a vital role into that thing. So there are few conventions. There are few conventions that will play a role under it. Okay. So if we are going to give like the laws which are passed by the British Parliament will be signed and approved by the Queen or a King currently. Okay. So this is one of the laws. Okay. But this law is written nowhere in the UK. Okay. It is practiced over period of time, and still it is coming as a thing. So that is one convention has been followed, that whenever the laws will be made, it should be passed by the British Parliament and should be signed by the laws should be passed by British Parliament and should be signed by the Queen. Okay. Now it is King. Okay. So this thing is nowhere written. If we are telling that for our, let us suppose for our constitution, all laws should be signed by the president. Okay. So president, this thing is written under what? This thing is written under Article 24 clause 1 in our Indian constitution. But when we are considering this thing, like it has to be signed by the Queen and it has to be passed by the British Parliament, it is nowhere written. It is just a convention that is being followed. So that's why it is called as a unwritten constitution. Okay, it is followed over a period of time and thus it has become a convention. On one more example, if I give you, currently Charles III is the king. So I'm giving you perspective the example with the Queen. So the Queen or the king currently will dissolve the Council of Ministry only on the advice of the Prime Minister. Okay, in the UK for the UK Parliament, this is nowhere written. This thing is also nowhere written. It is being followed in the UK UK Assembly. Okay, so the king or the queen can dissolve the council of the king, and the queen can dissolve the king or the queen can dissolve the council of ministers only on the advice of prime minister. Okay, it is nowhere mentioned. It is just a convention that is being followed. Okay, so I hope you have understand the difference between what exactly the written constitution, unwritten constitution. Written constitution, it means like all the laws, all the things related stuffs will be codified into a single document, and all the laws should be written under it. Like all the structure, like laws are made on the basis of the constitution itself. So all the related provisions should be present under a single document. But in the unwritten things, laws are written, but not all laws are written. Okay, so if we say, like if we compare with the written thing for our document, for our constitution, if you see, we have a multiple parts within document. Like for the part 1, it tells about the union and the territory of India. Second part talks about the citizenship. Third part related to our the fundamental rights. Fourth part, DPSP, related to the directive principle of state policy. Then fourth A, it will be related to the fundamental duties and all. Okay, so similarly all those things are written for us. Okay, now this types of constitution, this type of constitution is based upon one particular characteristic, that is written and unwritten. Now the types of constitution, another types of constitution on the basis of enacted and evolved. Okay, so that was based upon one characteristics, we will say that is types of constitution, first characteristics. Now the second characteristics for the types of constitution. So one will be your enacted one will be your enacted, and another will be your evolved. Now we have to understand what exactly this enacted means and what evolved means. So as the term defines, we will be able to understand, but I will make it more clear. Okay, so among many movement, the last important movement that we had, the Quit India movement, which was started from Mahatma Gandhi's speech at Bombay. So he was like he gave the mantra, do or die. Okay, so either we will work for the liberation of the country or die for it. We are not going to look backward, and there was no option for the British to accept for leaving the India. Okay, now the something happened between that, and prior to Second War also British had a standing arena, but after, even though they won and their position weakened, and after Second War British position got weakened, and they left the country. So the star power of the world transferred between two countries after that. To whom? To between the US and the Soviet Russia. Okay, so what happened? So after that we made our independence, and we enacted our constitution on a single day. Okay, after when the British was agreed to leave the country, so then after our constitution came into play. So here we are going to understand what exactly this enacted one means. Okay, so how this enacted constitution we received. So British government was weakened after the Second World War, and the Mahatma Gandhi also started the Quit India movement, which was like do or die mantra was given, that you have to leave the country anyhow. Now the British government made the mandate for a new cabinet mission. British government made the mandate made mandate for new cabinet mission, okay, which was responsible for our constitution, making of the constitution, which happened in the 1946. It provided this new cabinet mission. This new cabinet mission provided the way that made our constituent assembly, that formed one constituent assembly that was responsible for the task for the inaction of the for the constitution, to enact the constitution. So one constituent assembly was formed, okay, and this constituent assembly, it is a one body, like one body. It is not like multiple bodies were formed and it was given that you all sit together, so like multiple bodies were formed and it was like ask you do this, you make a law on this provision, you make the provisions on this section. No, one single body was given the task. The key point here to mention, one single body was given the task. And what is that one single body? This constituent assembly is the one single body. For what? For enaction of your constitution, for forming of the constitution, okay. So this one single body was responsible for making of the constitution, and on 26th November 1950 they framed the entire constitution, and this constitution was presented into the assembly. Like our constitution was ready on that day, and it was submitted to the constituent assembly on what day? On 26 November 1950. And we can remember this date, sorry, it is not 1950, it is 1949, okay. And on 26th January 1950 this constitution came into the force. This constitution came into force on a single day by a single body, okay. So if we say this, thus our constitution will be declared as a enacted constitution, okay. Now how this whole story you understand, like Mahatma Gandhi raised a Quit India movement after Second World War. British government was also weakened, so they have to accept the Indians' need. Indians was that they have to leave the country. That's why British government made a mandate for a new cabinet mission, that was in 1946, and this new cabinet mission formed one constituent assembly that is called a one single body. That is a key term for it. For if you have to say what is enacted one, so there is one single body was responsible for it. On 26 November 1949 this constitution was presented into the accepted by the constituent assembly, and on 26 January 1950 it came into force, okay. We have to remember this thing, we have to remember this date. If it's both are 26, easy to remember, and November, January, and 1 year minus from 1950, that will be your 1949, okay. Now if we tell this whole story was for India, okay. Now if we tell how the US constitution will be enacted one, so US was also the colony of a state of US was also the colony of the state of British. It was also a colony of British. British was ruling into the various colonies of US. So war broke out after that, okay, within the US. What war broke out? What we call it as? This war was called as the America War of Independence. This was called as the America War of Independence. How many total colonies were there? Like British formed colonies within the US. Total 13 colonies were there. So 13 colonies, they were started to fighting war between them. The fighting war of independence together based on a mutual interest and aspirations. And after that, these all 13 colonies sat together and framed the constitution. So it would be one constitution of the former colonies of British. So that's how they became the United States of America. Why we call it the USA, United States of America? That's why, because there were 13 colonies were present at that time, and they all wanted the British to leave the country. They united together, they form a single body, and they form their own constitution. Okay, this whole constitution was this USA was formed. How this USA was formed? This was formed through a convention called the Philadelphia Convention. This all whole story went through this USA formed USA organization, United States of America, we call it as. The 13 colonies all came together through the Philadelphia Convention. This was through in 1787, and thus this they formed the constitution, which was enacted in the year 1789, and thus one single body was involved under the forming the constitution. That's why this American constitution will also be called as the enacted constitution. Okay, so now we understand the whole the story of how the enacted constitution forms. So enacted constitution, like one single body should be there to frame the constitution. Okay, so then we will call the constitution as the enacted constitution. So two things we have remembered: our constitution is a written constitution, our constitution is the enacted constitution. Similar for the American constitution, also USA constitution is also a written constitution, and American constitution is also the enacted constitution. Now what do we understand by the evolved constitution? As we have just seen that unwritten constitution, UK is an unwritten constitution. Okay, so there are many things that works upon the convention. Okay, there are many things that works upon the convention that we have already discussed here. Okay, so how this evolved one? Evolved means like the laws will be evolved over a period of time. Okay, that we have seen. The best example is our England constitution. Okay, so in 1215 Magna Carta was there. So no free man shall be imprisoned, and church will be separated from the politics. After over a period of time, many evolvement takes place. Bill of Rights came, human rights came. So they evolved over a period of time. So these things over has been seen in the UK constitution. In Indian constitution, whatever thing is written in the constitution, only on that provision it will go. The laws will be made, anything will happen within the country. But no, if we take the example of the 1215 Magna Carta, where within this Magna Carta it was that no free man shall be imprisoned. What this Magna Carta was symbolizing, tell about no free man shall be imprisoned, and church will be separated. As we know, church is always interested in the politics from change the religion and all, but in their own country they were telling that no free man shall be imprisoned and church will be separated from politics. But the same thing was not seen in the India. Okay, now this law getting evolved over a period of time, which brought up many bills like Bill of Rights, human rights, they brought up. These things were brought up, these were evolved like over a period of time, when they saw like no, these things should be added, so they added into it. So this is what this Magna Carta is evolved. It evolved over a period of time. Thus we call it as a evolved constitution. Okay, so commentaries like important legal experts, they publish their important point of views of their laws, and then the commentaries will take place, and after that they will treat as a part of a constitution. So like whenever it is evolving, so like some person should be there na, who will tell that no, there is wrong in this, so we should come up with something different. So who are those persons that make some evolution within the existing laws? So those persons will be legal expert, or from the public side also the opinion will come and on that basis commentaries will be taken, and that will be treated as a part of constitution. Okay. So we have seen that enacted and evolved. Now the condition, what are the conditions for the enacted constitution? Conditions to call a constitution to be enacted constitution. Within the lecture I have used those terms as well. So one is very important, that single body should be responsible for framing the constitution. Okay. And second most important part, this bulk of constitution, this whole constitution should came to be enacted on one single day. Okay, that is very important. So on first thing, single body should be responsible for framing the constitution, and another thing, the whole constitution should came to be enacted on one single day. For our, it will be 26 January 1915. Okay. And yes, it is not that whatever the detail in the constitution can't be changed. Yes, we can amend the constitution, modification can be there, reforms can be taken place, but yes, it should be come into the force on a one single day. Okay. So in unwritten constitution, parliament is supreme, but in written constitution, judiciary has much more bigger role. Okay. So I am just telling about the comparison between the written, unwritten, also merging you to understand. So one was one constitution, the types of characteristic based upon one was written, unwritten, then will be the enacted and the evolved. Written will be your the constitution will be written into one single document, and unwritten will be it will be also written, but some of laws will be working on the convention. Okay. But in the second characteristics, enacted and the evolved, enacted constitution will be that constitution that where the single body will be responsible for forming the forming the constitution, and bulk of constitution should be enacted on a one single day. That are the two main characteristics for a constitution to be called as the enacted constitution. And evolved constitution will be your the constitution which has evolved over a period of time. That the voice can be from the public or from the expert or from the laws. Okay. Yes. So the third characteristics for the types of constitution we have seen the two on the basis of two characteristics. Now the third characteristics we will see the types of constitution, but is based on the third characteristics. Okay. On the basis of third characteristics, that will be your types of constitution. So two types, one will be your unitary and another will be your federal. Now this is very interesting, very interesting. Now unitary form of government, where all powers, what kind of all powers, what kind of all powers, when I am telling all powers will be your financial, judiciary and executive. We can add administration as well. Okay. So all power related to financial, judiciary, execution, administration will be centralized. That type of constitution will be called as a unitary constitution. Okay. Example will be your none other than England. So local government will be there. It doesn't mean in England local government doesn't make any changes to the laws or related stuff or any powers. Local government will be there, but not distribution of the power. So powers is like some powers will be given to them, that is the mercy on the central government. Okay, the powers like legislative, judiciary, executive given to the local government, but these are the power of center and they can snatch it anytime. Okay, so unitary government, all the power will be centralized. Okay, and it doesn't mean there won't be power to the local government. Power will be given to the local government as well, but that power is will be the power of central government, and they have the right to snatch that power anytime. Okay, it is just that I am giving my power to you exercise on behalf of me, because one person can't see all the things around them. Okay, so that's why we have given the power to the states and all, but it is not your power, it is our power. We have just given you to exercise it. Okay, so these things like giving the power to the local government are done for the administration convenience. Okay, these are done with the perspective of administration convenience. Okay, now what do we understand by federal? What do we understand by federal? Problem, there is no definition what is federal in any constitution. US constitution is called as the oldest constitution. Oldest US is called as the oldest federal constitution. Okay, that is, the constitution has to match with the with the US constitution to be declared as a constitution. If not, then it is called something else. So there are 5 tests that we have to perform to check whether any constitution is federal or not. US was the first one, like it united their all 13 colonies, formed the law and all. So we called it that and whenever the law is considered to be enacted, they consider all the states of the country. Okay, so now the US is known as the oldest federal constitution. That is a constitution, whatever the constitution is going to be formed, if I give you a country name X and I will ask whether this constitution is a federal or not, so you have to match the 5 tests for being of a federal, and that 5 test is being upon the by compared by seeing about the US constitution enacted. So what are the 5 tests? We'll just discuss it here. Okay, so 5 tests of being federal government. Okay, classification of the 5 tests of the being called as federal government. First, what the first point? There must be distribution of powers. Distribution of powers between whom? Between center and state. So there must be a dual government. That one government will be residing at the center, another government will be of the state. Okay, so example, one at center and another with states. Now the second point, the constitution must be a written constitution. Okay, we already have seen. Now the third, supremacy of the constitution. Constitution should be the law of the land. We have already discussed in the defining of the constitution. So the constitution should be the supreme. It should be called as the law of land for both. It is not the supreme of the constitution for the only center. It should be for both center and state. Okay, and fifth, it should be, the judiciary should be independent. So independence of judiciary should be present. So these 5 tests we have to fourth point I have missed. So your fourth point will be that constitution should be rigid. It is not like we can change anyone can change it. rigidity of the constitution should be there. Rigidity of the constitution should be there, and plus it should be supreme, that we have already mentioned it here. Okay, so rigidity of constitution should be there. It doesn't mean, this term rigidity does not mean that you can't change it. You can change it, but it should be difficult to amend. It is not like that if one person want to change the constitution, they were able to change. If prime minister want, I should change the constitution, they are able to change. No, constitution should be like everyone decision should be involved while making any changes into the constitution. So that's why we are calling as rigidity of the constitution should be there, and it should be supreme. And it doesn't mean, this rigidity term does not mean that it can't be amended. It can be amended, but difficult to amend. Okay, rigidity means it can be amended, but it is difficult to do so. Okay, so these are the 5 tests that if you want to compare whether the state is a federal or not, we have to check with these 5 points. First, distribution of power should be there. Dual government should be there. One is the center, one will be state, another will be the written constitution. Supremacy of the constitution. Fourth will be rigidity of the constitution should be there, that it can't be changed easily. And the fifth will be your independence of the judiciary should be there. Now, so if the question is there, if the question is there whether the India is a federal state or not, whether India is a federal government or not, so we'll compare it. So we have a distribution of power. Yes, we have a center government, we have a central government. So we have a center, so we are passing this test. Okay, we are passing this test. Now, whether we have a written constitution, we have a written constitution, we are passing this test as well. Whether our constitution supremacy or not, yes, our constitution is called as the law of the land. So that's why it is supreme, and it is for both center and the state. For the both center and the state, constitution is supreme. Fourth, rigidity of the constitution. Yes, our constitution is rigid. We need certain votes. There are certain number of votes that is required to pass any law. So yes, the constitution is rigid and it is supreme. And fifth, independence of judiciary. I have already told that there are certain sections which are independent. Which are those things? First is judiciary, that is there. Second is auditor and comptroller and auditor general. The third is public service commission, and fourth is chief election commission. These are the 4 stuffs which are independent as per our constitution. I have already discussed. Okay, go through the previous lecture, you will find it. First, judiciary. Second, comptroller and auditor general. Third, public service commission, and fourth will be chief election commission. These are the 4 stuffs which are independent as per the constitution. And yes, the independence of judiciary is following all this point. So thus our constitution will be called as federal government. But now here is the twist. What the twist is there? The twist is that when the emergency will be declared anywhere in the country or within the state, our country will automatically change from federal to unitary. All the power will go to the center. Okay, now here is the problem. What I have told you, when as a third characteristics, one is called unitary and second is federal. So unitary is like center is there always, who is ruling the country. Now the second is federal. Federal is like, I have just told you that we have to, if we want to tell whether this country is federal or not, we have to pass the 5 tests of the federal government. What are the 5 tests? These 5 tests are nothing but these are the provisions that have to match with the US Constitution. US Constitution, how the Constitution was enacted. So we passed, in the normal circumstances we passed it, but in certain section where the emergency is implemented, we are not passing it. Yes, our constitution is written. Yes, our constitution is written. Yes, our supremacy of the constitution is there. Independence of judiciary is there. Rigidity of the constitution supreme is there. But we are unable to qualify this first term, distribution of power. That's why That's why our country is not called as a India is not considered to be called as a only federal country. It is called as a quasi federal constitution. India has a quasi federal constitution. Okay, understand? I guess it is very clear to everyone. Understand? So I will just explain quickly for this. The dual government, the distribution of power is there. We have that central government can dismiss the local government through Article 356, and all abnormal circumstances presidential rule be there. So no real government working on the mercy of central. It acts as that. Okay. Judiciary is independent, yes, but the problem is there that judges are appointed by Supreme Court by the president itself. So here also there is some contradiction comes. Okay, for the transfer of judges from high court to another also it happens through the president. So these are the some criticism for that. But whenever we are telling about that whether the country is federal or not, our country is not federal. Our country is called as a quasi federal. Okay. So president have the power to remove the judge of the Supreme Court and all the basis of resolution passed by the parliament. So I'm just telling you one provisions that we are telling that our judge is independent, but in that case also the appointment of judge is by the president itself. Okay, so that's why our constitution, our Indian constitution, is called as the unique constitution. It is called as a unique constitution. Called as a unique constitution, that is called as a quasi federal. Some experts say that unitary but some character is a federal and vice versa, and some say it is a unique constitution. So these are the all discussion about the types of constitution based upon the different characteristics. Okay, so we have discussed just to a quickly overview of it. First type of constitution, that was based upon the whether it is a written constitution or unwritten constitution. Okay, the second will be your of enacted constitution or the evolved constitution, and third will be your of whether it is a unitary constitution or federal constitution. Okay, so we have seen about it. Please go through the lecture. If there is any doubt, please connect with me on Twitter handle as well if you want to connect with me related any topic. So thank you.